Donald Trump claims he personally asked Vladimir Putin not to launch attacks on Kyiv and other cities for a week, and allegedly Vladimir Putin personally agreed to do so, like a letter, a call, and so on. And I'd also like to recall the words of Vladimir Vladimirovich. He said that Ukrainians are asking not to be attacked, yet they themselves every single day are essentially striking civilian targets. How would you comment on all of this?
In response to this, I can confirm that it is true. President Trump did make a personal request to President Putin.
Refrain from carrying out any strikes against Kyiv for a period of 1 week until the first day of February.
For the purpose of creating favorable conditions for the negotiations. That's what I can say on this topic.
But they are indeed continuing. Dmitry Peskov.
I have nothing further to say on this subject.
So, does that mean the Kremlin agreed to this proposal?
Yes, absolutely. There was a personal address by President Trump.
Until February 1st. Does that mean including February 1st or not including
February 1st?
And could you tell me from what date does it start?
This topic is exhausted.
Just today, Zelensky stated that the Ukrainian side is not ready for any compromises, neither on Donbas issues nor on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, because according to him, such decisions could lead to a violation of the country's territorial integrity, and Zelensky says he will not surrender Donbas and the ZNPP without a fight. Has the Kremlin seen such statements, and how do they assess this, as simply bravado or an attempt to disrupt the emerging negotiation process?
Naturally, we have seen these statements. The first thing to note here in this context is, of course, that the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has been under the control of the Russian Federation for over 2 years. And here, one question arises. Does this mean that the Kyiv regime is preparing to advance through fighting? Is he trying to recapture this nuclear power plant, or is he going to launch an attack on the nuclear power station? And as for Donbas, the developments on the front speak for themselves, and in this regard, it's probably not worth adding anything more.
Today, Zelensky also stated that he refuses to go to negotiations in Moscow, and in turn, he invited Putin to come to Kyiv. Dmitry Sergeyevich, could you tell us how the Kremlin reacted to this?
And we've also seen these statements, and in fact, we've heard a great many statements over the past few days, and even in the last few hours, to be precise. Well, here perhaps I would like to remind everyone, and I must remind everyone that proactively, Putin himself did not invite Zelensky anywhere at all. He didn't offer any meeting to Zelensky. It was Zelensky who asked for a meeting, and Zelensky, in fact, is initiating the meeting. And in response, President Putin told him, yes, we are ready, but only in Moscow. It's very important to remember this.
Guterres stated that the UN believes, unlike Greenland, the principle of self-determination cannot be applied to the situation with Crimea and Donbas as it was with Greenland. In our case, the principle of territorial integrity prevails, according to him. How did the Kremlin perceive such UN conclusions?
We consider such conclusions profoundly erroneous from the perspective of international law. We disagree with these findings and have our own well-known, well-reasoned position.
And because of the cold, extreme cold, they have the same that we do, I personally asked President Putin not to fire on Kyiv and the cities and towns for a week during this.
A single claim from Donald Trump has abruptly frozen the battlefield, at least on paper. He says he asked Vladimir Putin for a 1-week pause in attacks on Ukraine cities, and he says Putin agreed. Kyiv is responding with cautious hope, weighing relief against long-earned distrust. Moscow, however, remains silent, and in this war, silence is never neutral. US President Donald Trump says he made a personal appeal and Vladimir Putin listened. Speaking during a cabinet meeting at the White House, the US President claimed the Russian leader agreed to halt attacks on major Ukrainian cities for 1 week. The reason, extreme winter cold. The claim, dramatic and unexpected, landed as Ukraine faces blackouts, freezing temperatures, and renewed strikes on its power grid. Trump did not say when the conversation with Putin took place, nor did he offer details on how the pause would be enforced. But he was clear on one point, that he personally asked Russia to stop firing into Kyiv and other cities, and that Putin agreed. So far, that claim stands alone. Ukraine responded quickly and carefully. President Volodymyr Zelensky thanked Trump, calling a temporary halt in attacks during winter a foundation of life. With energy infrastructure under sustained assault, even a short pause could mean heat, light and water for millions. But Zelensky also made clear Ukraine is waiting to see if words translate into action. Behind the scenes, this idea is not new. Zelensky confirmed discussions on a temporary halt in attacks on energy infrastructure took place during trilateral talks between US, Ukrainian and Russian officials in Abu Dhabi last week. Sources say American officials raised the proposal, but even then it was unclear whether Moscow would agree. And publicly, Moscow still hasn't. Asked about a possible energy ceasefire, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov offered no confirmation. "No, I can't comment on that yet. The Kremlin has not endorsed Trump's claim nor denied it outright." That ambiguity matters because this war has seen pauses before and nearly all of them collapsed. Ukraine says Russia violated a 3-day humanitarian ceasefire announced last year. Russia accused Ukraine of doing the same. Earlier still, evacuation plans from Mariupol fell apart amid mutual claims of broken promises. So now the battlefield waits. Ukraine hopes, Washington claims progress, and Moscow stays silent. Because in this war, a pause isn't peace.
We are in the second phase now. We've stood up for the first time, Mr. President, on your behalf, a technocratic, all Arab government. We've got the terrorists out of there, and they're going to demilitarize. They will, because they have no choice. So we expect that. Pardon me?
And now we want to get Hamas no guns, right?
Right. They're going to give it up. They're going to give up the AK-47s.
A lot of people said they'll never disarm. Looks like they're going to disarm.
So we had 5 Russian generals last Sunday in Abu Dhabi with Jared and Dan Driscoll. And we think we made a lot of progress. The talks will continue in about a week, but lots of good things happening between the counterparties discussing the land deal.
They're talking together.
We have a security protocol agreement that's largely finished, a prosperity agreement that's largely finished, and I think the people of Ukraine are now hopeful and expectant that we're going to deliver a peace deal sometime soon.
And because of the cold, extreme cold, they have the same that we do. I personally asked President Putin not to fire on Kyiv and the cities and towns for a week during this. It's extraordinary. It's not just like cold, it's extraordinary cold, record-setting cold. Over there too, they're having the same. It's a big pile of bad weather, the worst. But it was really, they said they've never experienced cold like that. And I personally asked President Putin not to fire into Kyiv and the various towns for a week, and he agreed to do that. And I have to tell you, it was very nice. A lot of people said, don't waste the coal, you're not going to get that, and he did it, and we're very happy that they did it.
That's correct.
Because on top of everything else, that's not what they need, is missiles coming into their towns and cities. So I just thought I should say it. I thought it was a very good thing, and Ukraine was almost, they didn't believe it, but they were very happy about it because they are struggling badly.
I think it shows, Mr. President, how you provide an overarching sort of presence in these negotiations. The Ukrainians never thought it could happen. The Russians are doing things maybe that people wouldn't give them the credit for doing, and I think it always comes down to your indomitable spirit.
The last time we had a press conference, it lasted for 3 hours, and some people said he closed his eyes. Look, it got pretty boring. In all fairness. So with that, we are going to ask a couple of people to say a few words, and we're not going to go through the whole table, because the last time we had a press conference, it lasted for 3 hours, and some people said he closed his eyes. Look, it got pretty boring. In all fairness, I love these people. I love these people. But there's a lot of people. It was a little bit on the boring side. But I didn't sleep. I just closed them because I wanted to get the hell out of here. Closed them because I wanted to get the hell out of here. Some of them, I didn't sleep, by the way. I don't sleep much. But you know, it's funny. Some of them got me in a blink. You know, when you go like, and they took me as at the one statistic yesterday that Scott told me is that for the first time ever, tell them about the steel in Japan, that we are now making more steel. Go ahead, please.
So yesterday they reported for the first time in 26 years, the United States of America produced more steel than Japan, and that is entirely driven by your tariffs.